Good morning, and thank you for joining us at the Caregiver Teleconnection program. My name is Minerva Jan, and I will be your facilitator for today. Today's presentation is Managing Guilt and the Need to Embrace Self-Care with our presenter, Lucy Barylak. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Lucy. Lucy received her master's degree in social work from McGill University and has dedicated her career to supporting caregivers. Lucy was the founder and longstanding manager of the Caregiver Support Center, a multi-service respite program for family caregivers. In 2003 and 2012, she received the Queen's Jubilee Award presented by the Canadian Home Care Association, awarded on the basis on her dedication in developing a national coalition to support the issues and challenges facing informal caregivers. She has published numerous articles and has presented at major conferences on her research findings. Lucy is also a liaison supervisor at the School of Social Work at McGill University. And something you might not know about Lucy, she was also a caregiver to her mother. And with that, Lucy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Minerva. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Being a caregiver comes with a complex set of emotions. We know that can change from moment to moment, including guilt. Guilt occurs frequently because caregivers' self-expectations are often unrealistic and usually cannot be successfully met. I think we lost sorry, Minerva, but I lost the slides. Okay, I'll continue. It's important for caregivers to recognize when they feel guilt, as it can impact their own health and the care that they provide. If you are a caregiver, determining how to exactly reassess your abilities and create a healthy balance in your life can be available and attainable the emotional pain that guilt creates. I have to tell you, guilt is something that pops up when you least expect it. Caring for a person with dementia or any other progressive disease can be very challenging. You're likely to experience an extreme range of emotions, one of which is often guilt. So my question is, what sets guilt apart? What is it that's so different about this emotion? Caregivers have shared with me that guilt lingers. It seems to be linked with so many other emotions caregivers deal with. So I decided to give guilt its own webinar. And I want to tell you, as Minerva said, I was a caregiver for my mother, and I want to share with you in the safe place that we're in that guilt would creep in on me and at the times when I didn't even expect it. And I'll explain why sometimes I would say to myself, am I visiting her enough? Should I be doing more? So even though, yes, I was a professional, yes, I knew all about caregiving, but that guilt feeling was there, and I knew that I had to deal with it in a certain way. And we're going to talk about that. So each one of you, if you feel guilty, it's normal, and I want to talk about how we can manage it. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, what I'm going to cover today is why guilt is such a tricky emotion, what can cause feelings of guilt, how to cope better, and the most important thing I want to tell you, and those who are professionals and working with caregivers, the challenge of self care. We have to make sure that our caregivers, that our clients, that our friends, that our sister, brothers take care of themselves. The other thing that I also want to tell you is that all the slides that I have will be available to you. I made a lot of slides just in case you want to do a little bit of a presentation on your own or if you want to share it with others. Okay? So let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about what is guilt, okay? Negative feelings of distress experienced when caring for a loved one. Caregiver guilt can include feelings of depression, burden, and anxiety. Some people may feel as if they aren't doing enough for the person they are caring for, even if it's validated by others. Caregiver's guilt may come from multiple factors. So just keep that in mind that the guilt can come along also when you feel burdened, depressed, and there is anxiety. Next, please. Guilt is a common feeling associated with caregiving. That might surprise you, but it's normal when you think about it. Guilt, like other feelings and emotions, like sadness and anger, is like any other pain. It's an alert to listen to. By talking about it today, I hope to help you notice the feelings, address it, and identify what is it all about? Why are you feeling that guilt? So, what I want you to do is if you're feeling guilty, acknowledge it. Say, I'm feeling guilty. You may have an image of yourself as the ideal you, which includes your values and how you relate to others. Guilt often arises when there is a mismatch between your actual day to day reality and the vision you have of yourself as a caregiver. I hope that makes sense, but we can talk a little bit about it later. Guilt can inspire you to be better, believe it or not, or it can actually paralyze you. So let's go and talk about what causes caregiver guilt. We're going to elaborate a little bit more. Many times, guilt about doing wrong for the person that we are caring for, making errors. And you're going to make errors. You're not a perfect person. Not being there enough, as I felt for my own mother. Guilt about not arising to the occasion as a caregiver. You have such high expectations of yourself. And guilt about having negative feelings towards the person receiving care. You don't always like the person that you're caring for. Maybe you've been put in that position because you're single, other family members have families. There are many reasons. Lack of time for other relationship and experiences, guilt regarding lack of self-care. Okay? Caregivers are frequently trying to juggle multiple tasks and roles at the same time. In addition to being a caregiver, you may be a spouse, partner, a parent, an employee, a student, a friend. Nobody can effectively juggle all of these roles all the time. And someone in your life might also be guilt tripping you about how you're spending your time and what you're doing. So some family members may expect a lot more of you, and that's really puts the guilty feeling into your soul. Blaming yourself for the state of the person you're caring for. Perhaps the person you're taking care of is not improving. Caregivers can blame themselves falsely, believing if they did something else, a loved one's medical condition would improve. When a loved one's health deteriorates, caregivers mistakenly believe they should be doing more to enhance the life quality of that person. Feelings of guilt, anger, and helplessness occur with this way of thinking. It's so important. There could be unresolved past relationship. I spoke a little bit about that. People can also unknowingly bring their past relationships into the role as a caregiver. Past unresolved conflicts with family members can influence the caregiver's relationship. Many caregivers feel guilty about the way that the past arguments or issues from childhood to kind of come into the relationship now, and they feel extremely guilty. Maybe you didn't have a good relationship with your spouse or your husband or your mother or your father. You have to recognize that because guilt does play a major role in that. Resentment for the time lost. You could be resentful that you're all this time is taken up taking care of this person. You may begin to experience resentment for the time lost for caring for your loved one. You may desire to spend your time with other people or completing other tasks, and caregiving takes up your physical and your emotional space. Feeling resentment around personal time loss may be a factor you can process in therapy or counseling. It's very important to be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. If you're feeling something, acknowledge it. It might not be something that you like about yourself, but you have permission to do so. Let's go to the next slide. If you have any questions about what I'm saying, or you feel that you would like to add something, just keep it in mind and we'll have time to talk. So now let's look at that, the whole issue, feeling bad about how you treated the person before the diagnosis. And that many caregivers come and talk to me about because they didn't know what's going on. They were just frustrated and patience towards them before knowing this was due to the dementia. The person was changing. They were repeating themselves. They were anxious. And so you got frustrated. You did the best that you could with the information you had at that time. And that's important to keep in mind. Bear in mind that everyone gets frustrated with their partner or family members from time to time. But a lot of caregivers say, oh my God, I was so mean. I was so bad. I feel so, so guilty. Well, you didn't know, and it's okay. You're doing the best that you can right now. Let's go to the next slide. Feeling guilty about getting angry or, and just, yeah, lashing out. If you feel angry and frustrated, you might occasionally direct this towards the person you're caring for. Many caregivers find it hard to forgive themselves in this situation, especially if they have said something hurtful. Try to remember that caring can be very stressful. I'm going to repeat that, and anger or frustration are natural for everyone in this situation. Taking some time for yourself to do something that you enjoy, such as reading, gardening, whatever, can help to calm these emotions. And I want to emphasize, I know exercise, I'm telling you, really reduces a lot of stress. Deep breathing exercises as well. I'm going to go a little bit more into that about tips, but I just want you to keep that in mind. At times when you do find yourself becoming angry or frustrated, it can help to leave the room for a while and to allow things to settle down. So if you find that you're angry, just walk away for a minute. Take a deep breath. However, if you pushed or hurt the person physically, you need to get help as soon as possible. And you need to forgive yourself also. It's unacceptable, we know, but these things happen. They do happen. And it's important for you to recognize that and to be able to say, this has gotten out of hand. I really, really need to get some help. Let's look about caregiver resentment. Okay. Remember that I said that guilt comes with other emotions. When the guilt turns into resentment, there are a number of emotions and behavioral issues that caregivers can experience, especially if the stress that comes up isn't addressed. We can't hold that stress back. You have to address your feelings. Guilt can result in reactive cycles that create other emotions and symptoms that become recurrent. The common signs, so this is important. If you are ambivalent, the feeling of wanting to be doing what you are doing, but also not wanting to do it at the same time, then there could be resentment, feeling unappreciated for the care you are giving, or wanting more help and not getting it, being irritable if you do not feel gratitude for what you are doing, or you are repeatedly criticized, it might result being very, very irritable. And that's when that whole guilt feeling comes in. Okay, so all these emotions that you're feeling eventually turn into guilt because there's no other way for you to deal with that. I want to talk about now feelings that others seem to manage better than you. One of the things, we can go to the next slide, Minerva. Meeting up with other caregivers at support groups or reading about other people's experiences might make you think that other caregivers are coping better than you are. You may feel guilty you haven't lived up to your own expectations or those of the person with dementia, or to the expectations you believe other people have of you. But remember, there's no such thing as the perfect caregiver, and it's important not to be too hard on yourself. Comparing yourself to other caregivers can be devastating to your mental health and a sense of well being. You can never truly know what's going on in someone else's household, right? The caregivers may appear to be perfect on the outside, but they have their own struggles. Comparing your entire self to someone else is really not something that you should be doing. You have to focus on your own life, your own family, and your own responsibilities. If you find if comparing yourself to somebody who's motivated and you think that you can follow through, then by all means you can do that. But again, don't be hard on yourself. You're the only one that knows what's going on in your own household and your caring situation. And it's so important for healthcare professionals to recognize that. Sometimes caregivers won't even tell you that they're having a hard time. They'll just want you to think that they're doing the best. It's up to you to really get to the nitty-gritty of what's going on in this situation. Let's go to slide 10. Now, I don't know, but I know that caregivers don't like to ask for help. Most caregivers don't because they think, as I did myself, nobody can take care of my mother as I do. Nobody can like or love her as much as I do. It's natural. So many caregivers feel that they should be able to manage without any help. But looking after a person with dementia or any other progressive disease can be exhausting physically and emotionally. You may be able to free up some valuable time by accepting respite care, such as help in the home, daycare services, residential caregiver services periodically. This will give you more energy and may enable you to go on caring for much longer. Even if the person with dementia is initially upset about others becoming involved, they may well come to terms with the idea. Give them time. The first experience of separation often make caregivers feel guilty and unable to relax. But in time, you will probably get used to it and it will start to, the experience will be much more beneficial for both of you. Now, why am I emphasizing this? Because I'm doing all this from my experience with caregivers, but also from what the research tells us. It isn't easy to say, I need to go meet a friend for a cup of coffee and the person I'm caring for is upset. You have to give yourself permission. You don't have to be a hero. You have to take care of yourself. So, with that, I want to go to the next slide 11, which says, we're talking about feeling guilty for wanting time apart. Okay, so here we go again with the guilt. You know that you need to do it, but the guilt comes in. You feel guilty about having time for yourself, but everyone needs to recharge their batteries now and again. It's very important for caregivers to enjoy some time away from their caregiving role. No different that we as people, we might love our children dearly, but sometimes we need some time to ourselves. You're allowed. Many caregivers find that giving themselves some time apart and doing things that make them feel happy and positive makes them more able to fulfill their role. Actually, that is really part of what the research tells us. If the person you're caring for can be left alone, ask friends or family whether they could pop in for a short time or whether they could actually come and stay with the person for a couple of hours and maybe even a day. Don't be shy to ask. And if you can afford it, definitely you can hire some private help. So the next one that I'm going to talk about, I know I can do a whole, and I have done a whole hour feeling guilty about the move into a care home. even though I know that I could take a lot of time talking about it, but I felt it's important for me to at least address it in case some of you are thinking about it and any of the healthcare workers are with us today, to be very sensitive how hard this must be. This is really a big one. Knowing placement in a care facility or nursing home is, it might be where it needs to go. You may experience caregiver guilt when faced with the decision of putting your loved one into a care facility. You may wonder about your capacity to care for your loved one on your own, but you need professional help, maybe around medication, lifting, whatever it might be. And there could be other aspects of your life, such as work, children, grandchildren, even your own health. Sometimes caregivers' own health needs to be taken care of, and they have no other choice. Some caregivers may feel that moving the person into a home is a betrayal. You might think you let the person down, or that you should have coped for longer. You may have previously promised the person you would always look after them at home, and now feel forced to break the promise. Remember that any promises were probably made in a completely different situation. The move to a care home also doesn't mean that you give up your caregiving role. It's just a different way of caring. Okay? So, having said that, we could move on to slide number 13. Now, this one is a bit complicated, but I'm going to try and do it as simply as possible. You may have needs out of line with the ideal you. We all have a perception about ourselves, who we are, what we can accomplish, what we can't, and so there's that ideal person and there's the reality of what your life is going through. You may believe that your own needs are insignificant compared to the needs of the sick person that you're caring for. You then feel guilty when you even recognize your needs, much less act upon them. For example, a mother may ask herself, how can I go out for a walk with my kids when my mother is at home in pain? What about I'm having a cup of coffee with a friend while he's at home, probably being miserable? You may have feelings of misaligned with the ideal you, feeling angry about the injustice of your loved one's illness. You might even feel angry at your loved one for getting sick. Recognizing those feelings can produce a healthy dose of guilt. I want to tell you, why did my loved one get sick? You may ask yourself. Perhaps if the ideal you acted more often, your loved one would be healthy. What if you served more healthy foods? Or what if you did this and what if you did that? What if you called 911 instead of believing your husband when he said his chest pain was just a little heartburn? If you're the kind of person prone to guilt, learn to manage guilt so that the guilt serves you right rather than imprisons you. So the first thing you really have to say to yourself, am I the kind of person that is always guilty about something? If you are, you really need to get the help to learn how to deal with that. And if we look at the next slide, it says you may even feel guilty about feeling guilty. It's such an emotional roller coaster, right? All those other emotions like sadness or anger, we kind of can justify it. I'm angry because this and this. But guilt is such a difficult one to actually do. So if we go to the next slide, let's take a look at how to cope with some of that guilty feeling. There's no solution. I mean, you're all individuals. So even if you get a few little tips here and there, that would help you. So always identify when guilt occurs. Really think about it. And I have to tell you, I love to write. So whenever I would feel guilty, I would write it down actually and say to myself, does this make sense? Why am I feeling guilty? I shouldn't, because I just visited my mom and I just called her. Everything seems to be okay. Reevaluate your self expectations. For example, like maybe it's time for a shower today, but I'm tired. I don't feel like it. Maybe a sponge bath is okay. So don't be so, strict about things. Don't stifle your feelings. Acknowledge them always. Connect with others. Don't isolate yourself. Make time for yourself. Every single day, you need to make a little bit of time for yourself, no matter what it is. Anything that you can do that makes you feel, I'm okay. Obviously, I would highly, suggest going to support groups if that is what you need. Not everybody is a group person, so sometimes individual counseling is much better. Be kind to yourself and accept that you're human. Forgive yourself and don't be so hard on yourself. Remember those things. Compassion, it's important. Focus on, and this is an important one that I learned the hard way with my mom. Focus on quality time and find joy in the small moments, not the moments that you're doing caregiving duties. I'm talking about finding meaning and purpose in your time with your loved one can help you avoid caregiver guilt. When you're a full-time caregiver, it's easy to get lost in the routine and go through the emotions each day of caregiving. However, you have an incredible opportunity to spend quality time with your loved one. Focus on finding joy in your time together. Reminiscing is a great one. Laughing, or simply singing together, or simply enjoying each other's company can be powerful experience. By enjoying these little moments, you remind yourself that you are doing enough and still have a wonderful relationship with that person. And I want to tell you, remind yourself of all the positive things that you've done in your life and that you're doing. Very quickly, one of the things when my mother was really kind of towards the end, she loved to have her nails polished, and I tell this story often. The only way I could kind of communicate with her a little bit was I would bring different colors, I would do her nails, we would look at each other, and she would reminisce of the past. And those moments have stayed with me. She's no longer with me. And I just want to really feel that we don't do enough of that. We're so consumed with the caregiver duties that we forget that we can have little tiny, wonderful moments with the person that we care for. So let's talk about the whole idea of coping. If we can go to the next slide. And again, I know that I'm repeating myself, but it's so important to do this. Recognize the feeling of guilt. Unrecognized guilt eats at you. Name it. Identify other feelings. Often they're feelings under the feelings of guilt. Name those two. For example, say to yourself, I hate to admit this to myself, but I'm resentful that this illness changed all of our lives, especially mine. Once you put it into words, you will have a new perspective. You will also be reminding yourself of how fortunate you are to have the opportunity to maybe care for this person who you love. That was my greatest joy, that I could take care of my mom because she did such a great job. She was a single mother, and I was grateful for everything she did for me. Be compassionate with yourself. We all have cloudy moods, like cloudy days, they come and they go. There's no one way a caregiver should feel. When you give yourself permission to have any feeling and recognize that your feelings don't control your actions, your guilt will subside a little bit. I want to tell you that I give myself at least about a day to feel sorry for myself, okay? I think you have to allow yourself to give yourself time, but it should be time limited. So what I mean by that, if you're sad and you're feeling sad and you're crying, it's okay. Give yourself time, but time limited, because otherwise it can turn into depression. So keep an eye on that. Look for the cause of the guilt. I said that. What is the mismatch between the ideal you and the real you? Do you have an unmet need? Do you need to change your actions so that they align with your values. So what do I mean by that? Take action, meet your needs. Needs are not bad or good, they just are. If you need some time alone, find someone to be with you, with your loved one. Recognize it and say, okay, I would feel guilty, but you know what? I need this. Change your behavior to fit your values. For example, sometimes we don't do what we stand for. Change your behavior for the better when you can. There's always a next time. Ask for help. Call a friend and say, I'm going through a hard time. Do you have a few minutes just to listen? Have a family meeting and say, our lives have been a lot different since this dementia diagnosis. I'm spending more time with our parents. Let's figure out together how we get everything done as a family. Revisit and reinvent the ideal you. Okay? You thought that you can do it all, but you can't. Accept it. That's the reality that you live in now. Understand that you will be a more effective caregiver when you care for the caregiver first. Okay? Loved ones neither want nor expect selfish servants. As a caregiver, when you care for yourself, you increase and improve your own caring. Yes, guilt is part of caregiving, but the guilt can help you become the caregiver that you want to be, meaning that, wow, I can really feel guilty and understand that it's okay. You need to take care of yourself. It is extremely important. So let's look at the next slide. And at this point, we're talking about adjusting your expectations. Explore the ideal you and the perfect vision. Okay, what is avoid putting such intense expectations on yourself by feeling guilty when you can't fulfill them? Sometimes we can't. As even if you weren't a caregiver, you couldn't do it all the time. Everyone needs a break to rest and recharge. Do not blame yourself for their decline. Okay. Caregiver's guilt often results from unrealistic expectations for yourself. You want to be the perfect caregiver for your loved one and provide them with the highest quality of life. Caregivers are not miracle workers, though. If you put such intense expectations on yourself, you'll only feel guilty when you cannot fulfill them. Don't expect yourself to provide 24/7 care for your loved one with no other support. Also, try not to blame yourself for your loved one's health outcomes, especially if they have a progressive disease like any form of dementia. You want to keep your loved one as healthy as possible, but that isn't always within your power. You need to remember that. I want to talk now about self care and have a little zip. It's important for you to think about it. Self care. What does self care look like to you? What does it mean to you? Have you thought about it? Have you thought, what does it mean to have self care? You can feel guilty when you care for yourself. This is the tricky part. You can think of self care as not only for you, but for them, a recipe to minimize risk to both for abuse. Sadness and anger, whatever you're dealing with, a painful emotion, acknowledging the feeling is the first step toward overcoming. Don't try to suppress or ignore your caregiving guilt when it's affecting your mental health. Instead, identify your feeling and move forward. Acknowledge your caregiving guilt also helps you humanize yourself. Caretaking is difficult, and all caregivers struggle from time to time. While your overall mental health should never suffer from being a caregiver, feeling frustrated or upset occasionally is completely normal. So how do you react to all this? You know, I think that one of the things, before we get to that, we could stay with that for a few minutes. Um, as I said, recognize, notice, and acknowledge the feeling of guilt. This is the first step towards overcoming it. Then, once you recognize, take a pause. Instead of reacting, take a moment to breathe and focus on the breath. Now, listen to the message. Identify where the guilt feelings are coming from. You may feel guilty over a broader pattern in your relationship with the person you are caring. What are your options and your choices? I want to tell you, we all have choices in our lives. Sometimes we think that we really don't because, oh my God, I have to, nobody else. You do have a choice as long as you sit down and think about it, activate it, understand why. The why will help you find a resolution. Then you act upon it. When you understand why you feel guilty, ask yourself, is it realistic what I'm doing, or do I have to change how I'm doing things in order for me to maintain my health, my mental and physical health, so that I can continue providing the care for as long as possible? Let's go to the next slide. So I do want to say, it's a little bit, the slides are a little went off, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll keep it, just leave it for now. But can you think of self-care as not only for yourself, but really for both of you? Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about something that's a little bit uncomfortable to talk about. When you're verbally, emotionally, or physically abusive, and it can occur when you are overwhelmed, stressed, tired, sad, depressed, afraid, lonely, angry, isolated, and guilty. That is why self-care is so important. And if you have done that, or even as a healthcare worker, you notice that one of your caregivers has even admitted to that, don't make them feel guilty. It's unacceptable. We know that has to be dealt with. Nobody should be physically, emotionally, or verbally abusive to anyone else. Sometimes even the care receiver is that to the caregiver. That's a different topic altogether. But it's important to know one of the things that will really help for us never to get to that position is really self-care. So what do I mean by self-care? So you're going to say eat well. No, I really mean that. When we don't eat well and we eat junk, or we don't eat, or we eat sugar because it feels better, it's kind of, it makes you feel better. It does affect your mood. There's no doubt about it. It's proven. Sleep is the same thing. You don't sleep, you can't function. And if you oversleep and sleep all the time, you're depressed. You need to get help. That's being, part of self-care. Moving. You need to exercise. And I don't mean you don't need to go join a gym, believe you me. The latest research, if you walk outside, or even I walk in my apartment, believe it or not, because there's so much snow and cold out there. Even if you walk for 15 minutes a day, you don't have to walk fast. 10 minutes. Move, get up. Everything that, even your caregiving chores that you do, you're exercising. That's important. Now, spiritual practice, if you're a religious person, yes, go for it. If it helps you, identify it. If you want to go to your preacher, whatever it is, do so. Now, one of the most important things is see your doctor. We know that caregivers don't take care of themselves. You really need to get your blood work done. You really need to see them. And the other thing that I also, and I did a whole session on that, there's a lot of addiction with caregivers, unfortunately. They try to soothe themselves by either drinking too much, even taking over-the-counter medication to sleep. You have to be very careful not to do that. And if you are doing it, go see your doctor. Talk to somebody about it. Be kind to yourself. If we go to the next slide, we could look at, these are again little tips, and it's up to you to do it. It's, I could give you all the tips in the world, but I have to tell you that small breaks every single day are a must. Even when I work, there are times I have to go out. I want to get away from the people in the office. So important to take a 5-minute break. An act of relaxation. You really have to find something that you enjoy, whether it's listening to music, going for a walk, whether it's gardening, whatever it is. Know yourself. You have a responsibility to yourself to take care of yourself. Treat yourself. I love to take a nice hot bubble bath, whatever it is. Time apart. We all need to be away from each other from time to time. Don't feel guilty about that. You need it. It's for your mental health. And again, we talked about respite. You can't be a caregiver 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Forget it. Setting your own boundaries, learning to say no to the person you're caring for, to other family members, setting limits, realistic limits. That's one of the biggest ones because then people say, "Ah, but I feel so guilty." You better take care of it if you don't. You're not going to not only feel guilty, but you'll feel other emotions. Getting your person used to other people. That's important too. How long do I need versus how long am I allowed? You're the only one that knows how long you need some time off. So stick to that. Try and make it happen. Seek social support. Don't isolate yourself. However, don't engage with people that are negative either. If you have a choice of two friends, stick to the one that has more positive rather than someone who's negative, because negative feelings are very addictive and you can really get into a spiral. View myself as a valuable caregiver doing this job. Give yourself credit for what you're doing and recognize it. Give yourself kudos. Find balance. I do this all the time. There are two people in this relationship. One does not outweigh the other. The person might be sick and you might be healthy. But if you don't balance that, you're not going to stay healthy for long. Caregiving guilt can be a sign of burnout or fatigue. When you feel too exhausted to support your loved one, the feelings of guilt and shame start to creep in. The best way to avoid burnout and continue providing quality care is to lean on your social support network. No one can provide round the clock care, as I said. Now, again, find what it is that really fits you. Caregiving is an important responsibility, but it shouldn't be your entire identity. If your only sense of worth or purpose comes from caregiving, you'll feel extreme guilt and shame over the slightest mishap. To maintain your mental health, you should find a balance between caregiving and the other aspects of your life. Continue to engage in your hobbies and spend time with friends and allow yourself to find joy and purpose outside of your caregiving role. Easier said than done, but so, so very important. If we can go to the next slide. So I wanted to briefly talk about when to get professional help for caregiver guilt. And this is also for caregivers and healthcare providers. So we said that caregiving burden is very common phenomena and guilt plays a major role. So we reviewed that. It's crucial for a caregiver's emotional, physical well-being to have a person that they could speak to honestly, to vent their feelings and not feel being judged for having them. Mental health, helping, as mental health workers, as home care workers, you really have an opportunity there to support the caregivers, your client, whatever it is that, whichever way you look at it, by really being there and being totally non-judgmental, accepting what they're doing. So it's really a good time if you kind of can't handle it, try and find somebody, whether it's a very good friend, but many times caregivers really need more of a professional interaction to deal with their feelings. So let's look at the next. I'm looking at the time. I want to leave you lots of time. Engage yourself. If your guilt persists, reach out to a professional. In some cases, guilt is complicated. which I said therapy can help understand the dynamics, work through complex emotions, then work on reframing your thoughts. And if we go to the last conclusion, so we have time to talk, and for those of you who want to stay a few minutes longer, I'm more than happy to do that. So again, remember that guilt is an emotion that is hard to let go of. Change the message you are giving yourself, change the perception. I'm in a difficult situation and I have to make difficult decisions sometimes. I accept that I'm human and get impatient sometimes. I'm doing the best that I can, even though things go wrong from time to time, and I accept that I'm not perfect. And I need to look after myself and find joy in my present situation and think about myself as well. Having said all that, let's have a caring conversation. Please feel free to ask any question or any suggestions because you might have other tips that you would like to share. So let's get going, guys.
Great presentation, Lucy. If you'd like to share some ideas, suggestions, please go ahead and raise your hand or unmute yourself. You can also put it in the chat box and I'll be more than happy to read them for you. I know since right now I am in my caregiving journey when it comes to my mom, the guilt is real and it is hard, at least for me, to not let it eat me up and accept this is just the negative words talking in my head. It's not the actual reality of what's going on. And you do have to take care of yourself. Yes, you do feel guilty when you're doing it at the beginning, but you have to keep reminding yourself this is so I'm there to help them.
Very well said, Minerva. And I can certainly understand. You said something very interesting and very smart. The whole idea behind guilt is the other person can make you feel guilty too. You have to remember that things trigger us from the past as well. So you might have had a, pretty decent relationship with your mother or not, whatever it might be. And the way your mother might be responding to you triggers that. And then you feel angry and you feel guilty. Like, why am I being angry? That's why when I keep saying to you, understand where that guilt is coming from, recognize it, acknowledge it, and step back and say to yourself, okay, why am I feeling that? Oh, of course I'm feeling guilty because mom always made me feel guilty. So, but that's was then and this is now. No, I don't feel guilty. I'm doing everything that I can. I see that there's a few things on the chat. So if you could, yeah.
Yes. Debbie said, thank you, Lucy.
I'm sorry,
Sorry,
Minerva,
I
you can't
muted
hear me.
myself. Oh my God, I don't like this laptop. It is being a technology bad day. Yes, the slides will be sent out to you along with the links to the recording and some additional resources that we think would be beneficial for you. It usually takes me like a day to get the recording up and running, and you should see an email within that time. Angela said, you couldn't be more correct, Minerva. And another Angela said, hi, Carolyn. Seeing you is always an encouragement to me. You bring me a smile, Angie. And Tracy says, yes, the dynamics of my relationship with my mother is difficult. And you have to remember that's not something that you'll be able to change. You can accept what's going on, accept that they are the way they are, and just be there for them through your caregiving journey. If
One of
that
the things that the most important thing I learned from myself, I'm putting myself now as a caregiver, not as a professional, acceptance. I had to come to a point to accept my mother for who she was at that time and place. Once I accepted her, the light started to shine through. I had no expectations anymore. I accepted this were her limitations. I can't do anything about it. Okay, so now that I've accepted it, I had to change my relationship with her. I had to think about what is it that I need to do differently. I'm not going to keep banging my head against the wall. It's not working. So when you accept the situation you're in, think about it. Can I continue doing what I'm doing? If not, be honest with yourself. I need help. And so try and get it. Is it something I'm angry? I'm upset? Who are you angry at? Are you angry at the disease? Be honest. This is something that I cannot continue doing. That's why many times, as a healthcare worker, you have to give your clients, your caregivers, permission to think about a different situation. Maybe placement is the answer right now. Remember, I talked about the whole idea there could be an abusive situation going on. We're only human. So giving people permission and saying, you know what, this is too difficult. You cannot go on doing this. And making a plan together. But doing the same thing over and over and over and over again and feeling guilty and angry and sad and frustrated is not a solution.
Okay,
I have realized after reading my journal this year, from the past year, that I had to give myself permission to mourn the mother I had so I could find it in my heart to love the woman I have now because they're not the same people. And a lot of people don't understand that that's what you deal with. You have to mourn the person you remember and remember that they are there, but they're not there. And it's okay to accept that and to love that person even though you love the person they were, you still love the person they are now. And you have to give yourself that permission. And I found that after reading my journal. I realized that I have, from the past year, I've really realized I've accepted that memory of who she is a separate person than what she is now. And it took a long time to get there, but I still cry. But that's part of it as well, because you love, people that you loved 20 years ago that are no longer with you, you still love them
Yeah,
today. Just because they're not there
for
doesn't
sure.
mean that you don't.
I have to say that you've touched my heart. Kind of brought back to me the same kind of feelings and emotions. Yeah, you have to accept and love the person that is there now. Even though, you know, when I think back of my own mom, she was an amazing cook, a very strong woman, raised me all by herself, and but she wasn't that any longer. And I had to kind of step up to the plate and uh, and do what I needed to do. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so important what you said, that whole idea of acceptance. And remember when I said, find the moments within your caregiving, not your caregiving tasks. Find the moments when you spend with the person that you're caring for and find some joy in that, something pleasant. Those memories will last with you forever.
and something I can share regarding that is right now with the holiday season, my some relatives that normally don't live here came into town. We got together with my mom and we made some tamales. And it's just remembering that over the disease or whatever the disease situation is in your case. Mine is not dementia related. It's something to hold on to when it gets harder as the time goes. Jennifer Post made a very nice post. I care for both my parents, my dad 85 and mom 82. I'm sure there's some dementia, but for the most part, they are there. They both are very negative and remind me a lot that they adopted me and didn't have to take care of me, but they did. I have no help though. My brother hasn't even come to their home in 6 years. Other family is too busy and or say I make it chaotic. Of course I do. I'm past burned out. I can't leave without my mom constantly wanting to know where, when, or what I'm doing. I never get a break, even when I get a break. They make too much money to get assistance, but barely enough to cover all expenses. I've tried to work, but they're too demanding and I end up missing work, being late or getting called too much. I had a boyfriend who helped a lot, but he finally got fed up and left. I don't know what is left to do. I know the case center is an idea, but I can't bring myself to that yet.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so, so sorry what you're going through. In many cases, it's very typical. But I have to say, you've got to step back and continuing the way you are is not the solution. You really need the support and help, and you have to give yourself that ability. Today, it's a little bit easier with the Zoom. You don't have to necessarily go to, you can always have support on Zoom, but you do really need to look at the future. You need to make short-term goals for yourself, and you need to take care of yourself. You really have to reach out for help.
Definitely. And there are organizations out there that have been set up to help and provide some assistance. Angela said, Lucy, giving myself permission has been the most helpful, comforting, and empowering thought I've heard in a very long time. Thank you. And Yashi said, sending hugs to you, Jennifer, because I understand what you're going through.
You have to give yourself permission to care for yourself. Nobody else will. You know that. I don't have
Yep.
to do. You have to be able, because staying with all those feelings with anger or sadness or depression, they're not going to get you anywhere. It's only going to escalate. Trust me, I've been doing this for 35 years. Besides being a caregiver for my mother professionally, all the research has been done. The best gift that you can give yourself and the person you're caring for is to care for yourself. I know it's not easy. It's hard, but take tiny baby steps. If it means for the first time saying, I'm taking 15 minutes for myself. Lock yourself up in a room if you need to. Watch a silly, stupid comedy show on TV. I don't care what you do.
I Love
Start
Lucy's always
small.
a great one.
Small, small baby steps and get the help. There are a lot of agencies, the triple A's, they're wonderful organizations that are out there. Use them. Call. Have somebody come to the house to assess the situation. See what you can get. If it's financial difficulties, there are services. I'm sure there are. And some of the people that are sitting with us today are healthcare workers. Do you agree? Are there services out there? There you go. Reach out.
Jessica, Jessica, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Um, I thought that this was very informative because I am the sandwich. And I know you all understand the sandwich, caring for a parent, and then I have a minor child. And so I thought that it was very good to hear and like connect with other caregivers that are struggling. Um, and it reminded me to remind myself that I'm caring for a caregiver. So I constantly call her my sweet mama that's me triggering my mind. Like, this is the sweet mama. This is the one that's been caring for people for 40 years. And now I'm having to care for her. And it is hard. But I thank you for letting me know to give myself permission to cry when I need to. And it's okay for me to take my hour walk sometime. I need to take an hour walk sometime. It's okay for that. And
Good for you.
even now, I left her in bed sleep because I needed this just for me. So I just wanted to tell you thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I was in this sandwich generation at that time. I still had kids at home and a husband. And I have to tell you, it can have an effect on your relationship with the person you're with, whether it's a boyfriend, a spouse, a partner, it doesn't matter. So that's why you have to really, really really think about and give yourself permission. I remember one time we planned to go on a weekend away and she really wasn't feeling well and I thought, "Oh, I can't go." I had to sit back and say, "Okay, what am I doing here? How can I fix this?" And I did go. We did have extra help.
Michelle said, I tell myself I need to take care of myself to be the best me, and without the best me, I cannot be the best for my loved one. It is hard to do what I need for me, but I try and say this to myself every day. And that's
Amazing.
very true.
Amazing. Tell that to yourself every morning when you get up and get dressed, brush your teeth. Say that to yourself. I need to be good to myself. You know, some of us carry a lot of baggage from our childhood, and a lot of people don't deal with it. And when you least expect it, something triggers you, and you're back to being that little girl, that little boy, that little somebody that is afraid and sad. And I always tell my clients, well, tell that little somebody that you're here now. You're going to take care of things. They shouldn't be so afraid. Deal with those emotions.
Definitely. With that, thank you everyone for joining us today. Just letting you know what's coming up with Teleconnection. We have our Spanish session scheduled for this coming Tuesday. It's going to be a guide on how to live with Alzheimer's. Again, that's going to be in Spanish. The next one will be Tuesday, January 20th, when aging parents don't want to receive help with Barry Jacobs. That is one I have shared with my siblings so they can also listen. And then our last one for the month is going to be Wednesday, January 28th. I made a promise, and that's going to be with Holly Lowe. Lucy, any final words you'd like to share with everyone?
Well, I just want to say that it's been a pleasure to spend time with you. And I've opened up myself. I felt I owed it to all of you to share a little bit. And just to tell you again, remember, balance, balance. And I do that every single day. Sometimes it's harder because, I have older kids now, take care of yourself, please. Women don't take care of themselves the way they should. That's all. And a happy, 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 happy new year.
Happy New Year, everyone, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for joining us and hope to see you on the next one. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody. Take
Bye,
good care.
everyone.